Hello, and welcome back to the Misty Morrison Podcast. I'm your host, Misty Morrison, and this is episode 52 of Petty Please. Here on the Misty Morrison Podcast, we love to listen or read. We love to hear all the revenge stories, pettiness, entitlement, neighborhood drama, workplace drama, and be grateful that it is not our story. Before we get into the stories for the day, our usual housekeeping, whether you are new or returning, please remember to subscribe for more, like, share it with a friend, comment with your thoughts on the stories, leave a 5-star review, all the different things. Any type of engagement with the podcast, whether you are on podcast, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the different options can help the channel grow. All right, into our stories for the day. Story number 1 is coming to us from r/revenge stories. My coworker kept interrupting me in meetings to finish my sentences. Usually wrong, so I started pausing mid-sentence and just waiting until he committed to his version. It took 3 weeks for the whole room to notice the pattern before I did. Some context. I work in a project management role, and for about a year I had a colleague, I'll call him Pete, who had his habit of jumping in whenever I started a sentence in a meeting and completing it for me. He wasn't doing it aggressively. It seemed more like an impulse. But the effect was that I'd start to explain something, and by the time I got to the actual point, Pete had already said something adjacent to it, and the room had moved on. I'd mentioned it to him once, casually, and he said he was just trying to keep things moving. About 4 months ago, I changed my approach. Instead of trying to talk faster or finish before he could interrupt, I started deliberately pausing after about a half sentence, mid-thought, sometimes mid-clause, and just looking at him with a neutral expression and waiting. He'd fill the silence, usually incorrectly. I would then say, not quite, what I was going to say was, and finish my original point. At first, nobody noticed. Then one of my colleagues mentioned after a meeting that she noticed Pete kept guessing where I was going and kept being wrong. Then another person mentioned it. By week 3, Pete had started catching himself mid-interruption and stopping. He hasn't completely broken the habit, but he pauses now, which is genuinely all I wanted. The meetings are noticeably better. I never had to have a single direct conversation about it. Interesting. I mean, you use logic and it worked like a charm. Story number 2 is coming to us from r/revenge stories. My property manager tried to keep my entire deposit by claiming damages that existed before I moved in. I had sent her the evidence before I even unpacked. This is something I still think about with a very specific kind of satisfaction, because it was one of those situations where being slightly overcautious early on ended up mattering a lot later. When I moved into my last apartment 3 years ago, my older sister came with me to help. She had been burned by a landlord doing exactly this kind of thing before and told me to document everything before I touched a single box. I thought she was probably being a bit paranoid, but I did it anyway. We spent about an hour going through every room with my phone camera, narrating out loud what we were seeing, photographing every mark, scratch, stain, and worn patch individually with the date visible in the frame. A cracked title in the bathroom. A cracked tile in the bathroom. A paint scuff along the hallway. A door handle that was already loose. A section of kitchen flooring that had started to lift at the corner. All of it on video and photos, timestamped, uploaded to cloud storage that evening, and emailed to myself. So there was a clear date record that predated my tenancy. I lived there 2 years. I kept the place in good condition, gave itemized deductions including the cracked tile, the paint scuff, the kitchen flooring, and the loose door handle. Every single item I had documented on day 1. I sent my property manager the timestamp photos and video with a polite email noting that these items were pre-existing and had been documented before I moved in. She replied that she couldn't verify when the photos were taken. I forwarded the original email I had sent myself on move-in day, which had the files attached and a clearly readable sent timestamp. The full amount was refunded within 4 days. My sister has never let me forget that she was right. I mean, she was right, but she helped you. She helped you a whole lot. Story number 3 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. My eyes are sour. I have to move the iPad closer. Okay. We're clicking along here. It is 11:26, and I still have about 15 minutes left to go. We've got this. What story was I on? Story number 3. Story number 3 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. If you're going to cut the line, be sure to pay. Yesterday, I had just about the most amount of fun it's possible to have on the London Underground. I was traveling for work with suitcase and laptop bag, so made for the wider gate entering the tube. There were a couple of people ahead of me with similar baggage loads when a girl cut in front of me, not particularly out of the ordinary for London, but then quickly moved in and tailgated the person in front, without tapping in paying. I can't think too much of it, as sadly it's a relatively common occurrence, but notice the pretty distinctive turquoise trolley case she had in tow. I didn't particularly pay much attention to where she went as I tapped in myself, and by the time I looked up, she was out of sight in the melee, which is the London Underground. So I did the only reasonable British thing of tutting and grumbling about the brazen theft, increasing everyone's fares under my breath. A few stops later, as I got to my destination, I approached the similar wide barrier to tap out, and I noticed the same girl and her turquoise suitcase matching her place to mine slightly behind me. Knowing what had happened on entry, I knew it was my time to shine. I approached the wider exit gate, tapping in with aplomb as she closed the gap to mere meters behind. It was only right for me to stop dead on, exiting the gate to pat down my pockets and make sure I had the wallet, passport, and ticket from my onward trip. The gate slammed shut on her, unable to shove past me and my bagged in time. She was left half in, half out of the gate, quite obviously having not paid her way, with a tube worker heading her way to help untangle her. Having confirmed the contents of my pockets and not wanting to be late for my Eurostar connection, I moved away without seeing if the young lady got her just desserts. But I did learn a few new words as I moved out of earshot. Stupidly petty, yes. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Okay. Story number 4 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. It took a week, but I'm rather pleased with the outcome. A little background. I have had my email address since Gmail was invite only, so longer than many reading this have probably been alive. The days of dial-up modems. That said, I have no patience anymore for someone using my email as theirs for other sites, services, whatever. I've been through the, hey, stop using my email address, and being ignored enough times, I will just F with anything they have sent via any services, appointments, subscriptions, etc. if I can. I started getting a lot, and I mean a lot, of email from a betting site. Looking at them was probably an app, and they were winning a couple hundred a day on winnings. God only knows how much they spent to make that much. Good point. So I contacted the company and I was like, this is my email and I haven't signed up for your site. Some back and forth, them asking for info to confirm it's my account, my only giving them enough info to show it's not mine but my email is being used as contact, and thus spamming my inbox. And today I got an email back to my account that has been permanently closed for suspicious activity. Works for me. Wasn't my account with them, but was my email. F you, whoever you are. Use your own damned email for shit or make a new one somewhere. This is weird. I mean, sometimes you can't get real revenge or it's just too hard to get real revenge. So if you can get a little bit of petty revenge, it works. Story number 5 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. Always pay attention to your email headers. Years ago, I dealt with a colleague who always liked to be in everyone's business, and he liked to reply inappropriately to messages in terms of giving unwarranted feedback, etc. One day, I sent out a message to key people in the organization about the status of a project, and I needed to CC him in there as well. Of course, he decided to weigh it unnecessarily to all, and I replied to him that if he wanted to discuss it further for some reason, that we should take it offline. He still replied to all at that point, but I replied only to him. I took other names out of the distribution and added private to the subject line. I politely and professionally told him that I didn't appreciate the way he had interjected into something he didn't truly understand, and that in the future he should just reply to me offline if he had similar comments to make. He didn't really take kindly to that and told me that he was free to reply how he wanted and as broadly as was necessary. I replied to him the following. I had said what I intended to say and was not arguing with him. I pointed out that he was inconsistent with his communication and didn't like broadcasting his failings, as with a certain project that had failed under his watch. I indicated that I was not going to go back and forth with him as it was no longer a positive conversation. When I sent this email, I also changed the reply header of the message so that it included all the people from the original message. He gets this message from me, sent only to him with private in the subject, and my comments about his failed project and lack of professionalism make him so mad that he hits reply, but does not pay attention to how the header changes for this reply message, and writes all sorts of things that I'm certain he only expected me to see. I looked at that message with exquisite humor and said/did nothing. 3 minutes later, I see a failed attempt at message recall, and my enjoyment knows no bounds. Some senior folks spoke to him that day, and he was far more circumspect in his response to messages I sent out. For well over a month, he didn't even reply to any of my FYI messages at all. No one said anything to me about my email chain because I ensured that my part of the chain would survive public scrutiny. When a message gets you bent out of shape, be very careful how you respond, and always check the sending information. It's when you don't stop to double check your work that you mess up. Story number 6 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. Your party stinks. It really, really stinks. Years ago, I moved into a new apartment the summer after COVID lockdown started, so summer 2020. The neighbors right across from me, our doors mere feet from each other, were a quiet couple who I never heard making any noises unless they were coming in and out of their apartment and talking to each other. A month or two later, that couple moved out and a new couple moved in. The girlfriend was a super loud talker who didn't understand the meaning of indoor voice. Her speaking voice was so loud I could hear everything she was saying while I was in my bedroom with the door closed. Ridiculous. Everything about her was obnoxious. Annoying laugh, overly extroverted, always talked to people while on speakerphone, and constantly used her Alexa to do the most inane things. And her boyfriend was a typical dude frat bro type who loved burping really loudly all the time like a 9-year-old. Since moving in, they hosted a bunch of parties in their apartment like every month or so on the weekends. This means that the COVID vaccine didn't exist yet for 9 months. Vaccine first came widely available in my area in April 2021, while they kept throwing parties. Everyone was paranoid of catching it and getting critically sick or dying, but not this couple and their basic friends. They gave no Fs. I later learned that the girlfriend worked in medical sales, so that tracks. Their parties would last from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. every time, and of course, I didn't get any sleep. I'd lie in bed hearing bumping music, crowd chatter, and every single word from the girlfriend. Talking to them was unproductive. Management was toothless, and one time this damn couple came back from a night of drinking and came back with their friends and held a house party from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. WTF is that? Who does that? I had enough. While one of their parties were raging, I came out and sprayed liquid ass under their apartment door, then went back into my apartment. For some weird reason, the loud chatter turned very silent. It eventually became loud again, so I did it again, and it pretty much got quieter. I even heard some people leave. They loudly wondered if someone shat themselves, lol. The party eventually died out, and I enjoyed a quiet evening. F you, Susan. I mean, that is fighting fire with fire, but I'm not going to say that wasn't the right thing to do in that situation. Story number 7 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. 2 parking spots guy. One time many years ago, my coworker friend and I met up at the mall after work for some time together. We noticed a fancy Jeep taking up 2 prime spots, and my friend and I had time, so we decided to play a game. Parked my small car in the spots on the left, perfectly in the lines, and with the Jeep's location, my car stopped them from entering their car on the driver's side. Then I hopped in my friend's car to discuss the law, and we talked, and we waited. We wanted to witness our petty revenge firsthand. It would have been a simple haha, because all they had to do was crawl from the passenger side, but after we get comfy in her car, it gets better immediately. Someone sees what I did and copies in the right spot. Now this Jeep person has no way to enter their vehicle but from the back hatch. Fast forward a few, and the perpetrator and his girl come out. They walked around for a few minutes just throwing their arms up like, what do we do now? And eventually the bald beefcake boyfriend makes his circa 2001 girlfriend crawl through the back hatch in her pink miniskirt to back it out. 10 out of 10 worth the wait. I bet it was. I am petty about parkings. You should be parked straight, not crooked. You should be parked fairly evenly within your lines. You should never park over your lines. You should always be signaling. Okay, I guess I'm a stickler about driving and parking, but parking is like my pet project. Story number 8 is coming to us from r/petty revenge. I had enough dealing with someone who wouldn't come out of the bathroom. This just happened a couple of hours ago. I am currently on a trip and heading back home. I needed to make a stop, get something to eat, go to the restroom, etc. I pulled into a McDonald's and go to the restroom first. I notice someone is waiting, and the person in the stall has their shoes off for some odd reason. Whatever, not my problem. I'll just go get something to eat first, then come back. So I make my order, get my food, and I put it in my car for the road. Maybe 10 minutes have passed. I go back in, the person who was waiting is gone, and the same person is still in the stall. Still no shoes on. I'm wondering, did this guy die or something? That took a turn quickly. Then his phone rings. He decides to answer it. On speaker. Yeah, Dad. What are you up to? I'm taking a shit. This is when I knocked on the stall to indicate, hey, someone's waiting. He responds with, what? I replied, someone's waiting out here. And his reply back is what finally got me. Well, you're going to be waiting an effing while because I'm taking a shit. He continues the phone call out loud, hangs up. Then I hear, hey, yeah, I'll be by later, just taking a shit. Why? I've had enough. First of all, he's been taking a shit for well over 15 minutes now. If you're on the toilet for that long, you need to see a doctor. But anyways, I decided this is where I'm going to get some petty revenge. I went to the counter to inform them. Now, I knew if I just told them, hey, someone's been on their phone for 20 minutes in the bathroom, they likely wouldn't do anything. I asked to see a manager. A woman comes over. Clearly not the manager, probably still a high schooler. And I say to her, I'm really sorry to be bothering you. I just want to let you know someone's doing drugs in the men's bathroom. This is really taking a turn. Her jaw dropped and eyes bulged out of her head. She runs over to who is clearly the manager and tells her. At this point, I'm leaving. I'm going to go somewhere else to go to the bathroom. As I'm leaving, I see the manager and 2 other men storm into the bathroom. Oh boy. First comment says, plot twist, he was doing drugs in the bathroom. OP replied to that and said, I honestly wouldn't be surprised. That's pretty bad. All right, that is 8 stories for this week's episode of Petty Please. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of the Misty Morrison Podcast. Remember, kindness changes everything, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.